Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Y2K. My name is Blake and today we're going to talk about the break-in period cost, the break-in service cost I should say, for my 1992 Lamborghini Diablo. I just had the engine rebuilt a couple of years ago and I had to put some miles on it to break the motor in. And George Evans did all this work, by the way, if you want to look them up. They're pretty much the best when it comes to vintage Lamborghini servicing. So yeah, I had to drive it 600 miles, ended up driving about 900 miles over 2.5 years. And it had to go up to Ohio for the break-in service. So, like I said, this isn't something, when I talked about the cost to restore the car, when we did the engine rebuild, suspension stuff, it's not something that happens every day. So I always think it would be fairly interesting for you guys to kind of see what all's entailed in keeping these old cars running. So let's start off just going through the associated costs with doing the break-in service on this car. Before we get into the itemized deal here, which I got in my hand, the shipping alone was about $6,000 just to get it there and back. And I don't want it to be in a shared trailer with other cars. They have to move it around and hopefully not wear the clutch out, but that could happen. So I don't like that. And it has to be in a trailer that I think is suitable to the car, that's safe, and has easy access through the side. I like that, just so they don't mess anything up trying to get in and out of it in a tight space, because this car takes up pretty much the whole width of the trailer. There's usually like an inch or two on either side of clearance. So yeah, that was about $6,000 just to get it there and back, which is, it's probably used to be like $4,000 to do that, maybe not even. So it's gone up a lot. Inflation's real. And this kind of keeping this car maintained for the big stuff I've had to do is not for the faint of heart. You really need to love this car. If you don't, then this probably isn't the car for you to buy. So let's start off. We had 2 cam cover gaskets. We had to do a valve adjustment. So a lot of gaskets had to come off. The whole top end of the motor, the intake manifold has to come off to do all this stuff. So 2 cam cover gaskets, $193.20. Right hand cover plate gasket, $31.13. Left hand cover plate gasket, $46.16. O-ring for cover plate, $5.71. 12 intake O-rings at $9.51 each, $114.12. This is a bigger one. The labor to replace and remove the cam covers, adjust valves. This is the whole valve adjustment essentially, and they had to do check the timing chain tension, and yada yada on that. But a valve adjustment, a timing chain adjustment, $1,919.40. Some shims cleaners, sealant, $50. The oil change, which was due, had been about 2.5 years. I didn't want to mess with the oil change until they did the major service, and I hadn't driven it. 900 miles isn't a lot for most cars. For a Diablo, it's actually pretty good, but not a lot. So I waited on that. That was $249.95. The oil filter was $86.63. And the oil itself was $223.86. This is exciting. I had a rear valve stem. I could have done that myself. It's probably stupid to let them do it. It was $50. The steering rack. This ever since I bought this car, I felt like the steering rack was kind of off. And we rebuilt the whole suspension, and I still had like a shimmying in the wheel at higher speeds like 80, 90, 100, which this car likes to be at, by the way. It doesn't like to go slow, and at 100 it feels like it's just doing like 60. So, and I do that on in Mexico and not public roads, private roads, all the time. So that was a big one. They finally found that it was needing to be rebuilt. There was a big shaking. I'll kind of overlay this in the video. You could like move the whole rack, and that was not bad, or not good, I should say. That was $1,195. You had to realign it again, which was $179.95. I had a hot start problem. Shortly after I got it back, it got worse and worse to where if the car got to operating temperature and I parked it, it's kind of a gamble if it would start, and you'd have to wait like 20 minutes for it to cool back down. These motors take a long time to cool back down. Even a new Aventador, like in stop and go traffic, will overheat. And it's dead of summer in Florida, so that was kind of frustrating, but I just figured I had to sit and wait. That turned out to be the number 7 injector was leaking down, so they pulled all the injectors out and cleaned them, and that fixed that problem. That was the diag was $319.90. The ignition rotor was also bad. It was worn. That was $329.95. The new rotor, just the rotor, $350. Check the fuel system, which they pulled all the injectors out and cleaned them, $319.90. And they used some chemicals for $30. The brake calipers on this car are kind of frustrating. I had the front 2 rebuilt, and then the left one was dragging when I brought it in. Had them rebuilt, started to drag again. They pulled all the brake fluid out, and it looked horrible, which is weird because I didn't drive very much. We are in a newer house that's closer to the water, like right across the street. It's not on it, but it's closer, so they think that's probably to blame. So I'll just start flushing the fluid once a year, I guess. So they did rebuild all 4 calipers this time instead of the front 2. I did not get charged for the one that was dragging, which was nice. They didn't charge me to reblade it or anything. So the front right caliper, which is the passenger side, they rebuilt that. Labor on that was $149.95. The rear brake calipers both got rebuilt. That was $285, and the kits were $150 each for the back, and then the labor was $285 for the back rebuild. The front brake rebuild was $150. It was just one, which I clarified that. Had to drain all the fluid, flush it a bunch of times because it was rusty, and the pistons were rust on the calipers, and the fluid was just really dirty. That was $249.95. $20 in brake fluid. The parking brake caliper bridge was broken, and they had to take that off, put it back on, and weld it. $150. E-brake already kind of felt kind of weird on this car, so that was probably what that was. They had to fabricate a plastic rod piece for the door lock mechanism to work again and repair that. That was about $300 total. And had some turn signal issues that seem to have fixed themselves. They'll probably break again. Put the blinker on, and for like 5 minutes it just stays on, and then once you drive for a while it works again. So that is everything. It's everything they did. And the grand total for all this work was $9,158.26. Plus the $6,000 to ship it there and back, for a total of about $15,158.26. Now keep in mind, I a couple of years ago rebuilt the whole engine and the suspension and did like a headliner and some other stuff. That was about $78,000. So what's that? 88. That's 10 plus 6. It's about $94,000 I've spent on this car in almost in about 2.5 years. But I bought it for a good price, and you can go watch that video. Maybe I'll put it up here. So it's kind of like renovating a home that's going up in value. It makes sense as long as you're not over improving. And I still have a lot of equity in the car as far as what I've put into it versus what it's worth. So that's why it makes sense. And I think, I'm almost, in my opinion, certain. You can never say for sure, but I feel very confident that this car is going to be continuing to rise in value as the years roll on. Monterey was kind of a mixed bag, but the good stuff seemed to bring some strong values, especially like I think it was a Diablo SV that brought good money, and a 6.0. I don't remember the exact prices. I want to say 7 to 850, something in that range. And a Countach did well. Bottom line is V12 Lamborghinis, and there was an LP640 that Roadster that was well over $1 million. I think it was 1.3 something. But anyways, V12 Lamborghinis seem to be doing just fine. There's a lot of other stuff like 50s and 60s cars that people seem to have kind of moved on from. I like the 250 GT California. They're crazy expensive. Cars that nobody ever is probably going to drive, but I love Ferris Bueller, so I don't think that car is going to get moved on from, in my opinion, because people my age watch that. But yeah, just a little look into what it takes to keep these things running. I wanted mine to be a no questions asked, mechanically great car. The paint is original. It's pretty good. It's got some Sharpie touch up around it. The front bumper is kind of scuffed up. I had a paint correction done and everything. It looks as good as it can look. I want it to be original though, but with great mechanical sorting, which George Evans has done. So now it should be oil changes once a year, but it's an old car. I'm sure some other things will come up. But the big stuff has been done, and the oil changes you can do at your house. So it'll only go back there unless it's something serious, or when I need my next valve adjustment at 30,000 miles, which probably won't. I won't drive it that much. So it might be 20 years before it gets there, or never at all. So anyways, that's a brief look at what it's taken to maintain this car. And I'm sure there will be more to talk about soon. If you enjoyed seeing what these costs were associated with keeping these cars running, which most people seem to want to talk about what they've done, but they don't want to talk about the costs associated. And I think it's important to be transparent with you guys and say this is what it really takes. So if you can afford the car, that's great, but you also have to afford the maintenance. It's kind of like buying a jet. You can get a jet right now for maybe 500 grand, like an old Learjet, but then the cost to service is actually more than the plane itself. So that's just a brief glimpse into classic car ownership. So if you enjoyed the video, like it, subscribe it, do whatever you want to do. But I would appreciate it, and we'll see you guys on the next video.